All right, well, we are continuing to watch what's going on with this system. Let's bring in Dr. Greg Postel. Oh, actually, we're going to Mike Seidel. Mike, you've been dealing with the system over the last couple of days. How have you seen things change over the last, let's say, 24 hours?
Well, certainly our weather got a lot worse yesterday as Nicole approached the coast and made landfall just south of here. What we've seen, we've been here since Sunday. So we've gone through at least 8 high tide cycles with this kind of weather. Look at the surf, this kind of weather. Let's go out to the surf and show that. This kind of weather and big waves continuing to pound these beaches. They've lost a lot of sand. In fact, day before yesterday, if we look this way to the south, we did have a dune about 4 feet high. It went out about 6 or 7 feet, dropped off. Big escarpment. So that is gone. That's been gone for 24 hours. More sand goes out with each high tide. Now, the tide is going out once again. The surf is still cranking, but nothing like yesterday and last night if you were watching. I mean, they were just, we really couldn't see how far out they were breaking. Now, they're still breaking far out. Now the wind, though, has shifted around at the south and south-southwest. So at a bit of an offshore component, and that's going to help with the issues with higher than average tides. Our fortunate thing is Nicole came in when we had low tide. Low tide was 218. Now, as far as impacts here, we do have power outages. Statewide, 237,000. Here in Indian River County, we have 17,500 customers without power. But the number you really need to know is how many is that? That's 18%. So about 1/5 of the customers in this county are without power. Vero Beach Airport picking up 1.88 inches of rain. Down at West Palm, just about the same, just under 2 inches of rain. West Palm Beach does have some flights canceled, about 20 flights outbound. Those are from this morning, I'm guaranteed, but inbound flights just 9. That's just about 3 or 4%. So air travel getting back to normal. The rain has moved out. We're really done with the rain. And now it's just a matter of getting this ocean to calm down, which will take place today and tomorrow as the winds subside. We're still gusting over 40 miles an hour. We had a gust at the airport to 60 miles an hour, Dr. Postel, and a weather station just up the coast here reported a gust of 75. So that's where our winds came in. Around the hotel, no structural damage. There is some debris, a little bit of debris here in the front yard. That's from the waves crashing over the seawall and bringing some stuff in yesterday's high tide cycles, but not so much this morning. And on the streets, as you would suspect with this kind of wind, palm fronds littering the streets here in Vero Beach. So Dr. Postel, short of the beach, everything else is in pretty good shape. But this is a big deal. I mean, this is tourism. This is what people come down to do, get on the beach. And they'll slowly repair themselves naturally, but not to the point where they were before the storm.
Yeah, Mike, the big legacy of Nicole will be the destruction from the wave action and the significant beach erosion and, of course, all the like of the coastal flooding. Thank you very much for that reporting.
All right, well, let's get you back out live now to show you how things are faring in Florida. Our very own Mike Seidel in Vero Beach. Mike, how'd the beach hold up?
Not very well, Alex. They've been losing sand since Sunday. The winds were onshore on Sunday. And on all the cams from Sunday right on through yesterday, big surf, especially yesterday as Nicole got closer. Now the surf is down. In fact, I'll give you an idea of how much it's dropped at the buoy. We've been mentioning this quite a bit east of Cape Canaveral. They had 32 footers, 32.8, I believe, yesterday at some point, late yesterday. They're down to about 20 feet. So they've dropped from 32 to 20. So they've lost about 1/3 of their wave heights. That's the right direction. The tide is now going out. We had 8 high tides that were above average that ate away at the beach. In fact, 2 days ago, we were looking down towards the Ocean Girl restaurant, which, by the way, has been through numerous storms and is still standing. And they boarded up 2 days ago. But we had a dune here. It didn't go out very far, 4 to 6 feet, and about 4 feet high. That was washed away night before last. So that's the big issue. That's the main impact here on the coast, is the fact that the sand has been washed away. Now, there will be natural replenishment as we go on through, the next few weeks and few months. The sand does come back. Also, looking off to the north, water coming right up to the protection, the wall, and that really kept the water out of these properties. Unlike what we've been seeing with Jim up the coast, as far as I know here in Vero Beach, nothing has been compromised. You saw the restaurant is up on stilts, and yes, water got under the restaurant, but that is it. As far as power outages, boy, they are really mounting the state of Florida now. About 335,000 That's up about 100,000 in the past hour or so. Here in Indian River County, they're starting to come down a little bit, just about 16,500. The important number, though, that's about 16% of customers. So about 1 in 7 customers without power. Winds are still gusting in the 30s. The rain, for the most part, is gone with a few spritzes, or it's either sea spray coming in from the Atlantic. Well, we're done with the rain. We had just under 2 inches. Peak wind gust at the airport, 60 miles an hour. Up the beach at a weather station, 75. Just checked Orlando. They had a peak gust of 63 miles an hour this morning in the 5 o'clock hour. Their high sustained wind was 43 miles an hour, Dr. Postel. So they did have tropical storm force winds, and they picked up just under 3 inches of rain. So a pretty healthy blow there in Orlando as the center came right over them between 5 and 5:30 this morning.
Yeah, Mike, I didn't find any reports of hurricane winds anywhere. And if you can find some, let me know and I'll report it. But I haven't seen sustained winds, much above 45 miles per hour anywhere. We saw some gusts in the 65 to 70 mile per hour range, as you mentioned, Mike. But that was about it. The primary big factor in the impact from Nicole was, as you see, the storm surge and the coastal flooding with that. Mike, thank you very much. But conditions are getting better south of here. Let's say, for example, in Vero Beach, where Mike Seidel is, and can tell us that I can guarantee you the wind and the weather are a lot better now than they were, let's say, 12 to 18 hours ago.
I can tell you that. I don't have any rain gear on, Dr. Postel. Yeah. We've got some breaks in the overcast. Look at it. Nice to see this blue sky out here. We've had some sunshine. Our rain is over with. The winds are south and now, I think, coming a little bit around to the south-southwest as the tide goes out. And no more high tide cycles where we have water, I don't think, coming up against the seawall. Now, we did have somewhat of a dune left a couple of days ago. It was about 4 feet high, went out about 6, 7 feet, and that was eaten away night before last. So, as you can see, there's really no protection except for the man-made protection. The seawall, under that, we've got the steel pilings. So all this property, the restaurant, Mulligan's, Ocean Grill, which has water going underneath it, but that's typical. That restaurant's been there for years, and they've been through numerous storms, and they've had issues they've had to rebuild, but you know what? It just keeps on ticking after taking a licking, as John Cameron Swayze used to say with the Timex commercial. Hey, look at the surf. It is coming down. It's still pretty rough, and you can see, if you look at the crest, you can see kind of how the wind's blowing a little offshore because it's blowing the top of the wave back to the east. So that's always a good sign. We had a peak gust at the airport of 60 miles an hour inland. Out on the coast here, we found one weather station that gusted to 75. And get this, I just was doing some research for Cape Canaveral. The Artemis 1 stack, that's launch pad 39B. Hopefully they'll get that off here in the next week or so. At the top, at 120 feet, the wind gusted to 87 knots, 100 miles an hour. That's a perfect example of how wind increases with height. That's why when we have hurricanes and storms, tropical storms approaching a metropolitan area, say like South Beach, where we have the condos, that's why we always discuss how the wind, even though on the surface at the beach may be gusting to 75, higher up it gusts higher. So how about that wind gust? 100 miles an hour at the top of the Artemis 1. Wow, what a wind. Let's go up the beach. Jacksonville Beach, the difference there with Reynolds is the wind is still east-northeast. And I just checked the latest ob at Jax, and it's still gusting in the low 50s. So you're still dealing with that onshore wind, whereas we're past that point.
Well, now let's work our way back out live to Mike Seidel, meteorologist Mike Seidel. They're in Vero Beach, Florida. And Mike, it's been a very prolonged period of that onshore push, really helping to eat up the beaches.
Yes, this is day 5. Although the wind is now beginning to come a little bit offshore, but Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, yesterday was the worst of it as far as the strongest winds. But 8 high tides, I'm counting about 8, maybe 9 high tide cycles where the tides were above average. And you can see the impacts. This is the beach, what's left of it. I mean, sure, there's still a lot of sand, but summer before last, the beach went out about 75 yards or so. They did a beach replenishment project, the Corps of Engineers, like they do a lot up and down the East Coast. And this is what's left. We've got the protection, basically man-made, not natural. We've got the concrete barrier. We've got the steel pilings underneath. We've got the big boulders thrown in here. Now, the surf is coming down. It's now being lit up by the sunshine. By the way, the tropical storm warning and the storm surge warning, all those warnings south of Sebastian Inlet, which is north of here, both of those warnings have been dropped. So we're in the clear for the warnings. We just have to wait for the surf to tame down. Watch out for the rip currents. Water temperature is still 81, so I'm sure there'll be folks out here, especially when the tide is lower, because there is sand to be found here in Indian River County. Speaking of that, 17,000 customers without power. That is about 17% of the county. That hasn't changed over the past few hours. What has changed is the power outages have jumped up across the Sunshine State now. 354,000 customers without power. Winds now still gusting at times 30 to 35 miles an hour. So we've gotten through it. The worst of it is obviously on the coast. Back inland, besides the power outages, we've got some palm fronds down, some vegetation took a hit a little bit. But Dr. Postel, again, as we had talked about this going into Nicole, that by far it was all going to be about out here and not so much inland. We did get a couple of inches of rain here in Vero Beach, about 3 inches in Orlando. They gusted to 63 miles an hour. So that's how it stands here, kind of wrapping up what we saw. But beach issues, the sand is gone. It will naturally replenish as we see in time. But, you know, those big dunes we had here just 2 days ago, they're gone. I mean, it's all gone. Just some sea oats right here, the sea oats that have grown up into the ground to the west of the fence. Dr. Postel?
Yeah, Mike, I mean, the legacy of Nicole is going to be the beach erosion, the coastal flooding.
Good morning from Vero Beach. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel, and the storm is gone. Nicole went through here. In fact, it made landfall just south of here early this morning. Our peak wind at the airport was 60. There's a weather station up on the Barrier Island. About 5 miles north of here, it peaked at 75. So we did have some gusty winds. Power outages still around 7,000 in Indian River County. They just checked, I think it was 350,000 now across the Sunshine State. A lot of those basically on the East Coast and especially up around Jacksonville. Let's take a look down the coast. Chris Erickson has been out here with me for 4 days watching the surf, and it's been up since Sunday. Now, it was really ramped up late Tuesday night through last night and this morning, but things have calmed down. You can see when the waves crash that the bit of an offshore wind now blowing the surf back to the east. With that said, we are now heading towards low tide. We are about 3.5 hours past high tide, or 3 hours, and still the water coming up at times all the way up to this concrete barrier, the wall and the pylons, the steel pylons underneath the dune. It's gone. I mean, it's been gone. They've lost a lot of sand, but naturally, it does come back. I lived on the beach, grew up on the beach up in the mid-Atlantic, Delaware, and Maryland, and every time it will replenish itself, but a big cut in the dune, gone. That also protects the properties, too. But again, here they have the seawall. We've checked with city management, and they've had some issues around the boardwalk south of here. Now, what you're seeing in the distance, that's the Ocean Grill restaurant. Very well known, very nice restaurant. And the water coming under that, that's not unusual. That restaurant has been through plenty of storms. Now, the other impact for locals, and the big story was, will they close the bridge or not close the bridge, Alex? Well, they did close the bridge last night from midnight till 4:30 a.m. this morning, and that's the best time to close the bridge. They usually do it when they have sustained winds of 45 miles an hour. So outside of the beaches, that's a lot. Things are fine inland, but again, a huge hit. And the dune line compromised here in Vero Beach in Indian River County. Alex?
Yeah, Mike, pretty crazy. Well, we've been dealing with the winds along the coast of Florida, and that's where we want to head back to there in Vero Beach. That's where we find our very own meteorologist, Mike Seidel. And Mike, it's been a tough time. I see you made it down towards what is at least left of the beach.
Yeah, what's left of the beach? I mean, there's still sand here, but let me put it in perspective. We had a dune here. It didn't go very far. There was an escarpment, but that's gone. These are in front of the concrete wall, and these are steel pilings. And I just talked to the owner of the hotel, and these go down 10 feet into the sand. So this is really not going anywhere. The only concern is how high the surge goes. Yesterday, we had a storm surge warning of 3 to 5 feet. We didn't get that because one thing is the tide was going out. Low tide was 2:18 a.m. Eastern, and that was about the time Nicole made landfall just south of here in Vero Beach. So they cancel each other out. The water never even really got up here. It came up with every wave, but it was never like right here. So the wind would blow the water up into the front yard, and you can see there's some debris up here in the grass. But boy, this is just a minimal cleanup. Really, all you need is a big rake, a lawn rake, and then you are back in business. Part of a palm tree. This is some rubber tubing that came from somewhere. A lot of rubber tubing. There's some more down there. But by and far, unlike with Ian, which was a whole different animal, there's not a whole lot of debris on the beach. But again, the sand is gone. The one impact they did have, and it does impact locals, are the bridges, and they did shut down, but this was not a big deal because they shut down from midnight to 4:30 a.m. when most people are sleeping. So the bridges are open, the sun is coming back out, the winds have definitely lightened up. The tornado, I should say, the storm surge and tornado warnings, storm surge and tropical storm warnings were discontinued a couple of hours ago. So we're in the clear. Now it's just a matter of some cleanup inland. There may be some water inside some of these locations here from the wind and the rain, but hotel here went through it in pretty good shape. And now we got to get the sand to naturally replenish because Coast Guard just doesn't come in, the Corps of Engineers, and pump sand in here. Those things are planned years in advance. So Dr. Postel, the sun is out, the breezes have lightened up, the surf is easing off, and certainly we're way out of the woods on this one, and it was all about the beaches, and that's what we thought it was going to be all along. What happened out here, not what happened inland.
Yeah, Mike, that's exactly right. The legacy of Nicole's damage